What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Nerds and Nachos. It's a one-chip week this week. We will have another Cantina episode eventually, I promise. I just, you know how things are. You know how schedules are. We're adults. It's like wrangling cats. However, how's y'all's week's been? It's week number 2 of video episodes. So that is, that's always fun. I have had a pretty good one. I went to pre-release last week or on Friday. I didn't do a whole pre-release thing. I didn't really spending $45 to go 0 and 3 and drop. So I just ended up picking up 5 packs. I got 2 jump starts and 2 regulars. The jump starts I got, I was hoping for Avatar Roku Firebender, but the ones I got were Siege Engines and it was the like flying one with Teo. So my rares were the Fire Nation Drill and the Mechanist. And then in my main packs, didn't pull anything like too crazy. I pulled the Elemental Teachings and I pulled Teamer Iroh. So I've been building Teamer Iroh. He is 3 and Teamer for a 5/5 with Firebending 2. On your turn, instants and sorceries have flashback equals to their mana cost, and lessons have flashback that is 1 generic mana. So I'm building him as a weird storm deck. So I am building yet another Spellslinger deck, and I know I already have Firelord Azula. So it's been an interesting build, seeing how it differs from like how I built Azula. It's currently sitting at over 200 cards. So, we've got a time ahead of us cutting that down into 100 that I'm happy with and keeping all of the lessons that stay in there. But that does lead me into what I wanted to talk about for this week. So, as we all know, Avatar the Last Airbender set is due to fully release this Friday, and the Spider-Man set has been out since MagicCon Atlanta, which was September. And Avatar is already a more market success than Spider-Man ever was. So I wanted to talk about why that may be, what the cause for that is, and run through my thoughts on this. So before we start, as you all know, I am a Spider-Man set defender until I die. You can see the binder back there that's a Spider-Man on it. It's all my old Spider-Man comics. I've got a Spider-Man plush back there. I have a Scarlet Spider Legend Series figure on my desk. I have a Superior Spider-Man figure on my desk. Like, I am a Spider-Man fan and defender of that set until I die. But that's not to say that there aren't problems. I've talked about it on the show multiple times. Was an issue. It had its issues. Number one, the biggest issue was they were adding cards last minute. So originally, Spider-Man was a set with no commons. It was a smaller set akin to Assassin's Creed. I've talked about this ad nauseum. The reason that they added cards last minute was Assassin's Creed was not received very well, and there's even now people still finding cards from Assassin's Creed that they never knew existed because they just skipped the Assassin's Creed set. So with that, we have like people learning about cards, and then just the cards weren't as powerful in the Spider-Man set. It was built in a different way. It's also hard to make every spider person unique. So one of the biggest things that I will talk about with the Avatar set is that all of the 4 nations are unique. A lot of the characters have very different mechanics. But with Spider-Man, because each character has the same base set of powers, it's hard to make each of them unique. My biggest example here is Scarlet Spider Kane. He is a black and a red for a 2/1 with Menace and Mayhem for a hybrid black-red. And whenever he enters, you may discard a card. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on him. This is a very, very underwhelming legendary. This is essentially just like a non-legendary creature's text. And I have already on the show redesigned him in a way that I feel like gives him his abilities from the comic books. Because back when he was in Austin, Texas fighting werewolves, He had bone spurs that shot out Assassin's Creed style from his wrists, and they were a one hit kill. They killed anything that they touched or punctured or what have you. But we don't see that reflected in the cards. We didn't get the depth of design. And that's another part. There was not as much depth of design for the Spider-Man set as there were with Final Fantasy and there is with Avatar the Last Airbender. The cards aren't as deep, the references aren't as deep. That's not to say that the people who made these cards weren't big fans of the Spider-Man franchise. It's just the same amount of care and thought that was put into the Avatar cards and the Final Fantasy cards was not put into the Spider-Man cards. And the reason I feel that is while Spider-Man is fantastical, it is not fantasy. If anything, it's more or less like present day sci-fi because Spider-Man gets his powers from a science experiment. A lot of the stuff in Marvel has to deal with science and science experiments and gene mutations. It's very much focused on the science aspect. And while it is fantastical and we do have some magic characters like Doctor Strange and Thor, we don't see those in the Spider-Man set. So it doesn't allow the card designers to dip into that fantasy style the way that they could with other things like Final Fantasy and Avatar the Last Airbender. And then my last point was Spider-Man is developed or was developed as like an intro to magic and not even done in the correct way. The Spider-Man set had, as far as products go, you have the collector boosters, the play boosters, the bundle, the gift bundle, and then the welcome decks. And that's it. That was all that there was. While the welcome decks are great to bring people into the game because they're free, they're lower powered, they're going to help people understand the game in that on that level. At the same time, you have stuff like foundations, you have stuff like now the Avatar set having beginner boxes, which has they have jumpstart packs, having things like even jumpstart packs in general increases the playability for established players and helps new players learn the game in a way that's fun and interesting and the stakes aren't too high. Going into Avatar, it was originally developed as a larger set, and that changes, I think, the design space for Wizards. When they go in and expect it to be and know it's going to be a larger set and not an aftermath esque type set, then we get things with more deep design, we get better cards, and we get a more fleshed out set with more references, especially with Universes Beyond, more references, more nods to the source material. And it feels like magic. Avatar The Last Airbender feels like magic because each nation has a different power set. Each nation does a different thing. Every bending does a different thing. Earth bending gives you man lands that always come back. Water bending gives you some kind of effect for spending creatures or mana as a resource. Airbending allows you to evade and turn things on their heads by exiling your creatures and recasting them for 2. And then firebending adds mana during combat. So it all taps into each of these unique bending styles. And those being unique, I think, is the key. Because, like I said earlier, you have all of these spider people that have, while Miles has electricity powers and Silk has something else, like they all have a little bit something different. They're all the same base set of powers: enhanced strength, enhanced agility, enhanced durability, and a little bit of healing, just things added on top of that. So it's hard to design something that's super unique for each one of these characters when they're all essentially the same hero, just in a different color aspect and then other things thrown on top of it to make them a little bit more unique in the reading aspect. It's hard to get those things to translate from from the page to the card. I'm hoping that's making sense and coming across the way that I want it to. Another big one is, and why it feels like magic, is Avatar is fantasy. I'm rewatching it with my partner right now. It is a fantasy show. It takes place in a completely different world. Bending is magic, even though they constantly tell you that it's not. It is. Bending's one of the most well-known and well-established and well-fleshed out magic systems that we've seen in our time. So it is fantasy. It's Eastern fantasy, but it's still fantasy. I know usually when, especially people that look like me, talk to you about fantasy, they are talking about Eurocentric knights and sorcery and spells and all of that type of things. And so that's what the stereotype of fantasy becomes. But it's not always that. With Eastern fantasy, you get something very completely different. Things like Avatar and all of this other large swath of literature and comics and media that I don't even remotely have the time to list off right now. But there are so many amazing projects that I just don't have the time to tell you about all of them, but Avatar is just like the tip of the iceberg for that. And then I touched on this a little bit. The products that were developed for this set are very different and are more fleshed out. So you have, for Avatar the Last Airbender specifically, play boosters, jumpstart boosters, collector boosters, a beginner box, commander bundle, and I think they might be doing a gift bundle. It is their Christmas set, so it'd be weird if they didn't, but if they're not, they're not. So, but still 6 compared to our 4 from the Spider-Man set. Just the swath of things, the amount of product that we're getting for Avatar makes it easier to sell to players because there are more things, there are more cards in the pack, and it's more fleshed out. It makes it just a better set than Spider-Man. And my last point is it's designed like a Foundations-esque set. If you look at Foundations at the end of last year and you look at Avatar the Last Airbender at the end of this year, you have 2 sets that are going to be in standard for the next 3 years. I know Foundations is 5, could be longer. I know it's at the least 5. But you have 2 sets that are kind of like the starting point of standard for the next year. And they really pushed into that. They put in jumpstart stuff to help people learn the game. They put in the beginner boxes that come with multiple jumpstart decks so that you can learn the game with your friends. I know from my own experience with a beginner box that's, again, back there on that shelf, they have 2 completely scripted decks so that you can sit down with somebody who's never played the game and play through a game that is scripted out and teach them how it works, teach them how everything works. And it's in a low stakes environment. And then once they're hooked on that, then you teach them with things that are completely randomized so that they can learn to make those decisions on their own. They can learn threat assessment, they can learn how attacking works, how blocking works, when to cast an instant, when to hold on to a counter spell, when to windmill slam your win con, all of those things. They can start to learn them themselves based on everything else. But I will tell you, again, I am still a Spider-Man defender. There were great cards that came out of there. Green Goblin is one of them. It was fantastic. It's one of the few CEDH cards that came out of it. And I know the Soul Stone is a very, very powerful artifact. As far as the Spider People, I think the 2 most powerful are Superior Spider-Man, because it's getting played in Modern a little bit as a pseudo reanimation engine. It's fun. You pitch a card into your graveyard, and then you can cast Superior Spider-Man. You exile that card, and he has all of the abilities. The only downside is his name is the Superior Spider-Man, and he's just a 4/4. So if you wanted to use Valgavoth, you would still get all the Valgavoth text of ward, sacrifice 2 permanents. Whenever a whenever a card goes into a graveyard, exile it instead under Valgavoth, and you can pay life rather than paying mana to cast that card. So it has all those abilities. It also has the flying. It's just a 4/4 instead of a 9/9. So you get that little trade off. And then Ben Riley, he's not. I think he's one of the more powerful, specifically for Commander, though, not really specifically for Standard or Modern. Maybe Standard if he gets a chance. Because of the web slinging, he works really, really well with vehicles. So you play a larger mana value creature, tap them, or somehow cheat them in. Tap them to crew a vehicle, and then pay your red and a green and web sling in Ben Riley. He gets those +1/+1 counters equal to the mana value, and then you have a big bungus with trample that is now a problem for the table. This is much more impactful in Commander when you can continually cast him, but it's still just ending up with a large creature rather than any kind of combo piece or any kind of combo work. But if you are a Timmy and you're playing aggro and you want to get something, you want to cheat something out, like I think one of the times that I played him, I got out of Galta pretty early for 2 mana, tapped the Galta to crew a vehicle, and then tapped to paid a red and a green and played Ben, and then suddenly I have a 16/15 ready to punch face. So there were good cards out of Spider-Man, but the amount of good cards that we have in Avatar is much higher, and the quality of all of the rest of the cards is also much higher. Personally, I do love both of the sets. I'm never going to sit here and tell you that Spider-Man was a bad set. I think it was a flawed set. I think it had some problems, but if you look hard enough, you can find some gems. I don't think it was a great set. It may not even have been a good set, but I think it's not terrible. It's not as bad as every other talking head on the platforms would have you believe, but it's not the best, and I understand that. And if it wasn't for you, I get that too. I understand Avatar might also not be for the general public, but I think because of how powerful it is, we are going to see a lot of those cards in Standard. We're going to see some of them probably in Modern, and a lot of those cards are coming to Commander, just like, how I'm building Iroh Grand Lotus and Firelord Azula. But you let me know your thoughts on this. Personally, I've told you multiple times, even in this episode, I will defend Spider-Man until the day I die. But if you don't like Spider-Man, let me know. If you just are tired of all of the hullabaloo with Universes Beyond in general, you can let me know that too. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Hey, didn't forget about you. I could not do this show without you. I want to take the time to thank my patrons, Ian, Jenny, Grayson, Sarah, and Kate. Thank you so much for supporting me. I could not do this without you. If you want to join the Patreon, we've got tiers all from $1 all the way up to $50. At $5 a month and above, you get a monthly zine sent straight to you. They look like this. They're all hand-drawn. I make copies of the master and send them out, and I keep all of the masters, so nothing is repeated. You get nothing the same in every single zine. We're up to 14 now. I just have not sent them out for everyone, unfortunately. But if you go $10 and above, you get a set of proxies sent to you, mostly every quarter. Sometimes I forget, sometimes they're expensive, and I don't have the money to do it. It's okay. I get around to it eventually. This quarter is coming in around the end of November, so those will be sent out soon. So if you didn't get in, unfortunately, those won't be sent out to you, but I will have some out at the beginning of next year, the end of this year, beginning of next year. So you can jump in just in time for those. If you're wondering what they look like this. This is a Platinum Angel I made. Here's the back. It's super fun. They're all designed by me. I'm not the best artist in the world, so it's a lot of more graphic design work than it is like actual digital artistry. But it's still a lot of fun. They are still very unique, and absolutely no AI is used on those or on this channel whatsoever. If you're in the market for a playmat, head on over to jankmats.com/nachos or use code NerdsNachos at checkout for 10% off your order. Doesn't matter whose playmat you buy. You can buy mine. You can buy Girl Pods. You can buy Howling Salt Mines. You could buy Tron is Bat. You can buy whoever's playmat you want. But if you use code Nerds Nachos at checkout, you get 10% off, and I get a little bit of that money, and all of that money goes to help feed my cats. If you are in the market for an energy drink blend, a relaxation blend, a hydration blend, what have you, you just want your water to taste better, head on over to w.gg, use code nachos at checkout, and get 10% off your order. Anytime you use that code, I will get a little bit of that money back, and again, all of that money goes straight to my cats, helps keep them fed, helps keep them warm and happy. And don't you want to do a good thing and help out my poor starving cats? They're not starving. One of them's like 17 pounds. But I have to sell it up a little bit. But if all of that does not tickle your fancy and you just want to make the corporations give me their money, you can do that too. You can do that by staying over here on YouTube, liking, subscribing, doing all that fun stuff, commenting, pushing that algorithm more. Over on our podcast platforms, a 5-star review is so helpful. It lets the algorithm know that if someone likes Magic the Gathering podcast, they would like this one too. And that's where we get a lot of our new listeners and viewers. All right, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope that you have a great week.